Okay, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ibrahim, student at UIA.
When can you get closer to the mic?
It's not on.
Is it not on? Okay. Yes.
Okay. My name is Ibrahim Musa Tijani from UIA, student at UIA in history department. The brother mentioned before that we need to return to the root of the problem, which is ideology. So, and we mentioned before about Dr. Hashim Kumali mentioned about we need to unite, and there's been consensus among leaders that we should not call takfir on the other, the next side. They don't call them kafir. The Shia they call them Muslim, Sunni, and Sunni call the Shia kafir. Don't use that word. But we want to return to the word ideology itself from the beginning, because as Sunni, when you hear something from the other side, but I can say to you, for example, they said, okay, for Ali, you don't curse Ali, you don't curse Ahlul Bayt, we don't say anything negative with them. We say, okay, sure, we respect Ali, we respect Hassan and Hussein, of course. But the question now is that if you hear from the other side, someone who mentions something negative about it, okay, we say, okay, Yazid, they mentioned Yazid, Muawiyah, it's a book of history. But when it comes to Aisha, on the other hand, when there's something negative about Aisha, if someone says something about my mom, negative, I'll get offended. So if something about Aisha, which is the Prophet's wife, I'll get offended immediately, directly. So when we come to common term of how to interact, the beginning we have to go down to the fundamentals of the ideology, where I do not curse you, I don't curse you, I don't say offensive towards you, but I understand your ideology, your theology, and you understand mine also too. What that means that I won't curse your imams, and you will not curse Aisha, or you won't curse Abu Bakr or Umar. You understand me? So there have to be boundaries in terms of relationship, in terms of understanding each other. And that's why you say in Malaysia, for example, this is the kind of ideology that they will preach towards the society if they want to talk about Shia. They said, listen, these guys curse Abu Bakr, these guys curse Umar. And once the society hears that, they're like, okay, who curses Abu Bakr, who curses Umar? They're my people, you know? So it's not that they're preaching something that's something very antagonistic to the society. Sometimes it's just what the Shia themselves, what they say. We understand that Shia is a minority, but you cannot protect minority forever. If minorities are wrong, you have to express and also tell them you're wrong what you're saying. If they're minority, and if they are the majority and majority is wrong, they're wrong. But we cannot just protect them as minority and, hey, Sunni, don't talk about them. Hey, Sunni, be careful what you say about minority. No, if they're wrong. Say what is clear. That's what we see in the society at large. And if you look at Iran, for example.
Iran, can you get to the point, please?
Okay, the point is, my main point is that we cannot keep saying that the Sunni we should belittle our standards just to facilitate for the minority. We don't tell the minority also too that they need to be careful with their words and they should all they express themselves. That's what we say. So for this, without secularism, without sectarianism, you have to understand that each sect have the extremes. So you point out all the Sunnis extreme does not help at all. So you have to also point out the Shia extreme and then tell the Shias to also, you know, within boundaries and parameters. And my question is for them to address the issue of how to express to the Shias how to stay within boundaries and parameters. All right? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Julia. I'm from Higher School of Economics from Moscow, and I'm also the student of Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization here. I wanted to address my question to Prof. Alatas. As far as you refer to some some certain points in your speech, and at first I would agree with you about that. Once we have, one TV program, once we let the, let's say, university professor to blame Shias in the class, and I'm sure it happens in Malaysia as well, people adopt a certain pattern of behavior, and they can see that this is allowed, so they continue to follow the certain pattern. And as a STAC student, I already had a lot of discussions with my Malay friends also here, and I used to hear that you don't think that Malaysia is a liberal society and we preach all these type of values. This society tries to guard a certain type of Sunni values. And even if you are born Shia Muslim here in Malaysia and you cannot live here, okay, do hijrah. If you are not agree, migrate. Don't try to secure this type of your Shia values here. It's not your society, then do hijrah, okay. And my question was about how to find this subtle border between the try of one particular society, let's say Malay, to guard the certain type of values, like Sunni, and from the other side, the try to secure the freedom of religious consciousness and freedom of speech. And for me, it seems like, you know, the certain type of problem which Europe has now, but from the other side, you know, how to secure the secular society values together with the Muslim migrants, and maybe the certain type of problem, maybe Turkey had during the times of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, trying to guard the different types of values. How to find this border on the, let's say, governmental level, on the trying of the government to secure this type of values. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Siti Kasim. I'm just an interested individual. Number one, I just want to ask why there aren't any ladies as a speaker on the panel. As the moderator said, we should have a gender balanced view. Number two, I just want to make a comment or maybe a question as well. The number one questioner actually said on the grassroots, if I say, you know, on the common people, people on the street, that there's no problem. Yes, it's true, but the problem is in this country is that we are being penalized. You know, I mean, he may not see that there's no problem on, you know, on the street. But yes, there's no problem. You know, I'm very good with the machi and the pachi and everybody else, but there are penalization in this country against people who they think that do not follow a certain way of Islam. And so, for example, I have friends who are transgenders. You know, in the Shiite community, they are accepted. In Iran, for example, even the Ayatollah accepted them. Even the Ayatollah pays for their transmission. But in this country, instead of understanding their problem, they are being persecuted because the Sunnis, or, you know, these religious views that they have here, they don't accept LGBT community. So there's a difference between the Sunnis and the Shiite or whatever. So I always think that is it better, this is a question to the panel, do you think it's better not to have a religious rule in a country? Why don't we have a secular, you know, we respect religious views, but no one religion will become an upper, you know, hand on anybody. Because as you can see, we will not have this talk if there is, you know, I mean, everybody have a different view or different interpretation of the religion.
Can you just give
yes, so my question is, does the panel actually agree that it is better not to involve religion in politics? Thank you.
Should religion be involved in politics? Obviously, religion is already involved in politics. There is a role for a relationship between religion and politics, and I think this gets into the question, the answer to the question asked by the lady before you about what can be done. Right? There is a role for politics in this case. Now, when we say religion and politics, it doesn't necessarily mean an Islamic state. It doesn't necessarily mean that kind of relationship between religion and politics. Anyway, now is not the time to get into that discussion. But when it comes to this particular issue of sectarianism and what we can do about it, I think definitely there is a role for our political and religious leadership to play a positive role. Not to allow, you know, bigoted religious leaders not to, in the first place, to appoint to high positions in religious office, such as the office of the Mufti, to appoint people who are not open-minded, to appoint people who are not really rooted in Islamic tradition and culture and civilization. I mean, we know examples of great Muftis, not only in the past, but even today in various parts of the Muslim world, of great Muftis who are very open and very cultured. Unfortunately, I think we don't really have a good record as far as Malaysia is concerned. The religious, the political leadership has to take a very concerted position on this. They have to be very, determined to put in high position religious leaders who will be able to play the role of educating Muslims in Malaysia about these issues. This can be done. It's not a problem if there's a political will to do this. But I think we don't have that political will. And I think there's room for analysis about the role of the various powers that be, whether it's the US or other countries in the Middle East, who have vested interest in steering people's understanding, in bringing a certain understanding of what is right and what is wrong in Islam to a country like Malaysia. I mean, the fact that Salafis, Saudi Arabia and Qatar are supporting the so-called Free Syrian Army, against the Assad regime is very telling, right? And the role of Salafis in that struggle. We of course have Al Qaeda and the role in Afghanistan and Iraq. The alliance between the unholy alliance between the Saudis and the Salafis is well known. But in this country, there's no analysis, at least in our media, about that. But it is well known. You can check on the internet, and there are several studies, academic studies that have been done on such alliances. So this is where ideology comes in other words. There are interests. Because people have been talking, some of you have been referring to ideology, that Sunni Shia issues about ideology. There is an extent to which ideology is involved, in the sense that certain groups have certain vested interests in supporting Salafis. The US has certain vested interest in supporting Salafis and Wahhabis against other groups. Ideology is coming. But there's also an area, a vast area, which has nothing to do with ideology. It's got to do with religious beliefs and convictions. As one of the brothers just now said, when we hear criticisms against the Sahaba, we get offended. This is not ideology. This is what we believe to be true. And we are offended when what we believe to be true is said to be wrong. Well, my answer to our Sunni brothers is, grow up. Just grow up. Deal with it. Because there are things that we believe to be true but are not true. Sayyidina Uthman was criticized by the Sunnis for not upholding the Sunnah in certain things, for being nepotistic. It's not a Shia fabrication against the Sunnis. This is found in the Sunni sources. So, as I said, grow up, accept it, deal with it. We need to be more mature about it. Of course, when it comes to sensitive things like this, criticizing some of the Sahaba, like Sayyidina Uthman, criticizing Abu Hurairah and things like that, when it comes to those kind of things, I would not say that we should go out in public, broadcast it over the media, because they're just going to create unnecessary problems and conflict. But they can be discussed at a certain level, at the level of university professors, lecturers, students. We can talk about these sensitive things because, I think we can take it. But we need to educate our people into learning to discourse and to discuss and to realize that history is not the whitewashed history that we're being told in our religious education. So we can be critical at a certain level. Among scholars, among intellectuals, among the ulama, we can be critical, maybe at forums like this. But certainly, not to write an article in the newspaper criticizing Abu Hurairah, you're going to create unnecessary problem. But at least at our level, as I said, we need to become more matured and not say, well, you don't say this because I'll be hurt, and I don't say that to you because you'll be hurt. Then we're not going to get anywhere. And don't forget, where is our attitude about the truth? What Ibn Khaldun called haqa'iq al-ashya. To get to the truth of things, the reality of things. Should we have a correct attitude about that? So the Sunnis have certain beliefs that are not correct. The Shiites also have certain beliefs that are not correct. Certain beliefs about events that happen in history and so on. We have to realize that we need to correct ourselves about that. And that's at a certain level, intellectuals or scholars or students. At another level, when it comes to the masses, maybe we don't talk about those things, but we talk about cultural events, about seminars and talks, lectures, and other kinds of cultural events that bring the two together. So at different levels, there are different kinds of things that can be done. But ultimately, the leadership of the country has to be open to this, the political leadership and the religious leadership. They have to play a facilitating role in all of this.
Just add a note to what Professor Farid said. In some ways, there's a strange dynamic between the majority and the minority. Our brother mentioned that the majority has the right to correct the minority, strongly held doctrine. You cannot be a majority if there's no minority. And the minority's identity is shaped by their relationship to the majority. In a democratic system, the majority has an obligation to at least pay heed to the minority's needs and expectations. They cannot step on them too strongly. Of course, Shia represent about 13% of the Muslim population today. They're a small minority, but in some countries they're a majority. But even then, there's no absolute, complete Shiite state. Iran has 20% non-Shiite. So Arabia has a large Shiite minority, 15% at least. I mean, they have to take into account the complexity, the mosaic of populations. Iraq is, again, there's no one uniform monolithic presence. So Islam always encouraged diversity, always embraced multiform expressions of its doctrine and its experience. But this has been lost. Islam has become shrunk down and flattened in the last generation or two, and it's become localized and particularized. It's become the property of an ethnic group, as if it was a gene that you inherit. It's become formalized and externalized. The spark of faith has become dimmed. People think Islam is what you eat and what you wear, how many wives you have. Islam doesn't have that much to do with those externalities. If people were really rooted in their faith, and we weren't talking about Shia and Sunni, we were talking about mu'min, iman, then there would be far less of these disagreements and misunderstandings. Going back to the idea of being critical and revising our understanding of our own inherited identity, I mentioned the need for a critical historical review. For example, the doctrine of the four rightly guided caliphs. It took about 300 years to develop. For the first 150 years, there was only 3 rightly guided caliphs, according to the official doctrine. The Umayyads thought that after Uthman, there was a period they called it fitna, civil war. They never mentioned Ali. They denied his status as a rightly guided caliph. Only by the middle of the 3rd Islamic century did Ibn Hanbal reluctantly admit that Ali should be one of the rightly guided caliphs, because they had to deal with the Sunnis in Iraq who revered Ali. Also, the era of the Umayyads saw a massive forgeries of hadiths of the Fada'il type, the merits of the companions. This has never been studied systematically. In Ibn Abi al-Hadid, Sharh Nahsh al-Balagha, he quotes from an ancient source, the story of Madani, Kitab al-Ahdath, in which letters by Muawiyah to the provincial capitals are cited in which the policy of forgeries, massive scale forgeries about Ali. You know that Ali was cursed publicly from the pulpits for about 80 years under the Umayyads. And only Umar II, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, reversed that policy. It was part of the official religious observance to curse Ali and his sons, the Ahlul Bayt, for the first century of Islam. The impact of this is not understood and realized. There has to be more critical work done on this. Formation of the doctrines of the Imamate among the Shia and of the Mahdi, both among the Sunni and the Shia. The Mahdi figure was originally a Sunni creation by Umayyad propaganda and used by Ibn Zubayr, a Sunni rebel against Umayyad authority. Later it became adopted by the Shia. These are issues also that need to be explored. The whole role of political rulers in fostering and supporting creeds and doctrines and law schools. The ritual observances and distinctive cultic institutions that separate the Shia and Sunni. These are all aspects that need to be explored and better understood. Muslims only have a very vague and elementary view of their own history. Like Professor Farid said, they need to grow up and become a little bit more mature, a little bit wiser, and a little bit better informed.
Yes, very quickly. Responding to the last questions, I think religion, as long as it is understood in the context of what Karl Popper called open society, religion has the same right as any other ideology to have a say in politics. And actually, religion has only very limited number of unchangeable doctrines that would not disturb the balance of politics if it is understood openly. And a little bit about responding to the remarks of one of the brothers. We certainly agree that the means for unity or rapprochement between the Sunnites and the Shiites would have to be done by considering the sensitivity of the issues that the Shiites, for example, should not say bad things about figures that are referred by the Sunnites. That, no question about that. And actually, there are, apart from Ayatollah Sistani that I mentioned, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, also there is a very clear statement by Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi about this. And Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi actually reminded us what was the reason of Imam Khomeini giving a death sentence to Salman Rushdie with his book Satanic Verses. The reason of the giving of the death sentence to Salman Rushdie is because Salman Rushdie said derogatory things about the wives of the Prophet. And actually there are much more ulamas within the Shiites that would say this kind of fatwas and teach the followers of the Shiite madhab to be more sensitive towards this issue. So I think we all agree, but at the same time we need to be careful to distinguish some of the extremes among the Shiites who have been very generous in saying bad things about the Sahabas and everything, and the mainstream, the opinion of the mainstream Shiites as represented by their ulamas. And also we need to remember that this kind of saying derogatory things about figures referred by the two schools of thought had also been made by some of the most prominent figures among the ulamas of the Sunnis. If you read, for instance, the Minhaj al-Sunnah of Ibn Taymiyyah, he would say bad things about Sayyidina Ali, the fourth Khalid, to the amount of saying that actually he was seeking wealth and political power. And many other bad things about Imam Ali. So this kind of things actually happens in both madhab. I think that's the only things that I would like to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all the speakers. First, on behalf of Dr. Farish, I would like to convey his apology. He is leaving for Singapore and it has to go to the flight. It is on at 7 p.m. so he has to be there before that. Let's put our hand together to our speakers, Dr. Haidar Rahman, Dr. Salim, Professor Farid Alatas. For everybody information that IRF, together with other local NGOs, had launched Say No to Racism last month. I do believe that racism and sectarianism are in the same group. So I think it's against international human rights, and I think we should go for that cause. Before we conclude our seminar, I would like to welcome our Dr. Faisal Tehrani to recite a poem titled Value. Most welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As a Muslim, I believe I am near to socialism. Thus, being a socialist, I am near to Shiism. I'll be reciting a poem in Malay language. To those who cannot understand Malay, my message is I am tired of sectarianism, racism. I believe in the oppressed, and those who champion them are the real Muslim. The title of my poem is Ingin Jadi Hugo. Siapakah yang bersuara garau dan si pemberani itu? Ia datang bukan untuk menabur janji. Memang kapitalis keparat hartawan bangsat menaruh dendam benci. Mereka semua bertanya, antagonis manakah ingin merebut kuasa dan darjat kami? Hugo, siapakah budak dari kasta melarat ini? Saat aku diutus surat, engkau sudah pergi. Serasa amat mencekam sekali di hati. Aku kagumi kesudianmu menjadi juara marhain, gelandangan murbawan. Aku tak mungkin berdaya dan kuat sepertimu. Aku mencari-cari sumber kekuatanmu. Al-Mahdi Al-Masih engkau memberitahu. Tuan Komandan, Sang Komrad, mengapa tidak kau jelik dan jengkil kala menciumi tangan kasarku? Tidakkah kau tahu aku hanya buruh, bahawa aku seorang peladang sentiasa ditimpa malang, tanganku terpalit baja kotor, kelupas menghayun cangkul. Aku berjalan sejauh ini 25 kilometer, kata anakku, semata-mata ingin aku melihat wajah bersih sucimu. Aku mendengar lantang teriakmu. Dalam titis hujan aku dengar sayup. Aku amat bangga walau kadang kurang mengerti. Mengapa sampai tidak kau peduli anjing-anjing yang menyalak itu? Jika engkau ingin memerdekakan kami dari semua belenggu kasta dan kelas, sungguh ikhlas dan belas. Sekarang kau sudah tiada. Serak garau suaramu tiada kedengaran di jalanan. Warna merah kegemaranmu sudah sebati denganku. Sebab pilu teresak sedu, kenapa harus malu? Masa berkabungan akan berakhir. Tergantung di leher, terikat di gelang tanganku. Aku ikat Chavismo, aku semat, aku kunyah lumat. Akan kutukar tangis jerih kucur keringat perit seorang wali. Engkau Santo, ingin jadi Hugo, ingin jadi hero. Aku juga Chavismo. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much to Dr. Faisal Tehrani from UCAM before we disperse, I would like to remind everybody that we have the books exhibition out there, and the key is served at the back. So everybody, please help yourself. And let me leave you with a quote from Ilya Imadi. وترى الشوك في الورود وتعمل ترى الندى فوقها إكليلا. You tend to see, to look at the thorns at the roses rather than to, or you make yourself blind to the dew on the top of roses which form like a crown. We tend to see our differences, to highlight the differences rather than to see our similarities and the best values that we share together. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ma'assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.